haunted neighborhoods in Tucson.
I've actually had stuff happen to me that make me not ever want to go back in again.
You gotta hit the bullshit button.
In the neighborhood there that you claim over the top of a cemetery.
It is, yeah. It's a person that's never a spirit. So I go and get him and the lady, and I'm like, hey, who's this guy over here? She's like, there's nobody over there.
You keep these things?
Oh, definitely.
Good afternoon and welcome to Real Estate Rumble. My name is John Smith. I'm here with my business partner, Matt the Bulldog Bollinger, and our other team member, the Mouth of the South, Kelly Tanner. That's a self-proclaimed thing. You say that you're the Mouth of the South, are you not?
I actually say I have a gift of gab, but okay.
Shazizzle. Messed that one up. Bazinga. Anyway, so Matt, what's going on? What do we got today? Who's our special guest?
We've got Tucson's finest Paranormal. And I'm super excited about this.
As am I.
We've got Ian and Eric.
Welcome, Ian.
Paranormal.
Welcome, Eric.
How you guys doing? Thank you for having us.
Guys, do I have some questions for
appreciate
you?
it.
First of all, I need to know how the hell you got started in this business. Second of all, I want to know why you're so passionate about it. And the last but not least thing, I want to know why ghosts wear clothes.
That's a good
Okay?
question, actually.
Why? Because
Good
they're not
question.
part of their spirit.
Well, you die with what you wear, I guess, you know. Or I guess,
So if I
guess
wear
you
a thong
you
on my
wear what you
deathbed,
want.
that's what I'm going to ghost people with.
I guess you allow people to perceive you however you want them to perceive you in the afterlife, in the third realm. You
That
control
being
that, I
said,
guess, you know.
All right, well, so
John
listen,
will be wearing
Ian,
a
let
thong
me get you
in the
started off on the right
afterlife.
foot. Tell me a little bit about your guys' business. Tell me what you do. Tell me how, and I don't even know if this is business. I think you guys just do this because you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so how'd you get started in this? Who was first? Eric, was you started?
I would say Ian. We've worked together for quite a while. We go back
Yeah, a long time.
20-something years.
At least 18.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh, yeah. It had to have been longer because I've been at my work 17 years, so. Yeah, it's been like
So-
over 20 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It does not seem
It's
that long.
been a while, bro.
Time goes by.
It's been a
seriously.
All right, so whose idea was it? What stone night drinking was it? Dude, let's go chase ghosts. That'd be something.
You know
It
what?
happened
I think
with the
we've
old-
both
yeah.
had experiences, and just I don't know. Ian was, he does a lot of history.
It's
He looks up a lot of.
back in the day, back then when like Ghost Adventures had just started off too, they were young and they were very primitive, really, and so it showed me really, I think at the time, and him, that if you had the interest in ghost hunting, that if they could do it, why couldn't we? So I had found this old ghost town out in Marana with all these old houses and stuff, and I'm like, hey, why not? Why don't we go out there and entertain this with a little digital voice recorder and a couple of little just nothing objects and stuff? And we went out there really like intrigued, and we did everything that you're supposed to do, really, as far as like to open up that doorway of communication. And we caught a voice of a man that said the name Juan Miguel in
Isn't
like,
that a tequila?
I don't know. That might be a tequila from Mexico. American
But
tequila.
basically, that's kind of what kicked it off.
That's like the Admiral Nelson.
Wait.
Ian,
The tequila kicked it off? Or?
Tequila.
maybe possibly.
That is really what started it, though. I mean, because just
But
from
yeah,
like seeing stuff
I'd
growing
seen the
up,
show
but-
too. He'd
Yeah.
seen the show. We're like,
So did that
kinda
freak you out the
interesting.
first time when you picked up a voice like that?
It was wild, dude.
Did you
like
want
I
to
said,
just run and leave, or
No.
no?
I think it was different for him because, like, for me, I was so I'm an Aries, so I want
Oh,
So am I,
shit.
though. So am I.
and like I want everything, But on the other end, like he's always been and until he was directly affected, like emotionally, physically. That's when he believed. But it took years and years, and there was stuff that would happen. And I knew it was real. I mean, he knew it was real, but he still was like, I don't know.
And I'm like, nah, that was the wind.
Is that the best pickup line ever? Hello, I investigate ghosts and I'm an Aries.
Oh, people don't like that. It's not a good pickup.
It is
line.
not a good.
Neither was the
No, it
hearse
doesn't
that I
work.
drove. Either,
Okay,
by the way.
fair enough.
That wasn't either.
I can imagine.
They thought he carried bodies for a living.
You would think that people would.
I would love it.
You think people? Well, around Halloween, people love it. It's like the
Oh.
coolest thing ever for one day a year.
course.
One day.
So when you had that experience that he was talking about that made you go, okay, I can't explain it. What was that like?
First of all, I don't remember any of it. I don't remember it happening. I don't remember anything.
Tequila.
And so, maybe too much of that.
No, not the Juan Miguel one. This is like
No,
when he actually
this
got
this
like,
was a different incident.
Oh, on your own.
Later
the
on.
subjugation case
Yeah.
like that. Where
Was this
he
on
actually,
your-
was
that's what you're asking about.
years?
Right?
Yeah.
Bad,
This was
bad,
years,
bad.
years later after.
So was this on your own, or was you
No,
connected
he was with us.
No,
we
we
were
were
at the
all
Ajo
together.
hospital. Where were we? Yeah, we were at the hospital.
We're at the jail.
The jail. It was the jail in.
All right, hold on.
Globe.
You were there to investigate, or were you
Yeah,
there
yeah.
visiting?
We were there to investigate.
We were investigating. The jail.
Okay. And so they actually called you in?
That's the Globe.
Yeah, they would give us the keys and just let us pay a couple $100, and we could still do it. Like, and they'll let us stay. They'll let us go all night by ourselves in there and just close the door and lock the door
So
behind us.
let me,
Wow.
for clarification, this is an older jail. It's not occupied
Yeah,
anymore.
it was built in like the early 1900s and ran for probably a good almost 100 years, and then was shut down, and they opened up a new jail. But it's a multi-level, 3-story, really
And it's
beautiful
actually
jail.
still connected to the courthouse.
A lot of
The
deaths
courthouse
happen
is
in there.
right in front of it.
Yeah, there's a catwalk that's
Yeah.
connected to the courthouse that people used to jump off of if on their way to court because they knew that they were going to get hung because the gallows was actually behind the building
Yeah.
at that original jail. The gallows was there in the back.
They did everything
so
right there.
They would catwalk you from the jail across into the courthouse. You would go to court, and then if you were getting hung, you would catwalk back across, get put in your cell, and they would bring you to the back and discreetly hang you, but they still would allow people to get up on the rooftops and stuff and watch down because the gallows itself was enclosed on 4 sides so that the public couldn't see. But they would let the kids get up on the roof and stuff, and like, you know, it was
Oh,
a big.
wow.
It
It
was
was
a
an
big
event.
Fun. Oh, it was fun.
It was an
People
event. They
loved
probably
it.
had a barbecue.
It was a big deal. It was actually the only fun thing that would happen. We've talked to old people that have like gone to them that were old, in their 80s and 90s, and one older woman said, "Oh yeah, I used to dress up in my Sunday dress, and we loved to go into town to watch the hangings happen at the jail." and stuff,
Watch
you
the
know?
hangings.
Deterrent.
Yeah.
The worst way to die
It
ever.
was a public
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to die by hanging.
They weren't all so secure either. Some of them they would allow the public to come and watch. In Florence, women weren't allowed to watch hangings at all up until a certain point. But the first woman to be hung in the state of Arizona was Eva Dugan, and it was the first time they allowed women to go see a public hanging in the state of Arizona. And when they hung her, her rope was not tied correctly from her height to weight ratio, and they decapitated her in front of an audience
Sweet.
of people. And everybody like passed out and fainted, and that was actually the last hanging in Florence. And Florence was no longer allowed to hang people after that because of the botched hanging, and all hangings were done at Yuma Territorial Prison.
So,
From there
okay,
on,
we've
you know.
we've hung somebody.
Yep.
All right. Now, at this point, according to what you guys believe, and a lot of people believe, that the spirit left the body. The body was just a vessel.
Definitely.
And then what's next? We've got a decapitated head. We got a spirit separated from the body. Does it just hang out wherever it got hung?
Yeah, I think that's where it's kind of up to the spirit themselves too to decide.
We have
you know?
options.
Yeah, and I think that you only have a small window for that either, and I don't think you always get that option either. I think it's kind of it depends on the situation. I think too, because there's times where we see people come back to places that they weren't at when they died. We see people that are stuck at places where they died absolutely, and they stay there and they don't really leave. You know, so there's so much weird things that we don't know about it. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm a believer of, yes, there is heaven, there is hell, but the hell is your version of hell. Like in my head, I know that I'm going to wake up one day and I'm going to both
Well, I
of
tell
my
them
ex-wives are going
sometimes,
to be
too.
in the house with me.
Because there's places that we go to where I know, like I'm sure that these people that murdered these people are there. We've communicated with them by name at times in these places where they've killed people, but they didn't die there. But they're there, and I tell them, you know, this is probably their hell. Like, because who wants to be in this trailer where you killed these little girls
Exactly.
in 1994
Yeah.
and forever, you know? And
Yeah.
that's it. That is your new.
I could not
like, you
imagine
chose
waking
your
up
path, though,
and
you know? So-
ex-wife number 2 showing up in her damn apron going, breakfast is ready.
So anyway, back to the jail.
I would be like, I would be crying. Okay,
Back to the jail.
if I had to deal with that spirit ever again, I'd be out.
So
It'd
the
be it.
jail's wild. in
So anyway,
Globe.
you were in the jail. We know people got somebody got decapitated.
That was the other
So
one,
it's
but-
jail. It's not fun. You're there, and where were we in a cell? Were we in the women's?
Yeah, we were in the
ward?
women's ward. Yeah, we were on the
in the
second
women's
floor.
ward,
Yeah,
so
the women's ward.
We're in a cell. We're hearing noises. You know, I'm trying to just disprove everything. I'm like,
And we had separated at the time.
Oh.
We weren't in the same cells together. We were in the
So
same
you were
cell
alone?
block, but the three of us had completely separated from each other.
You know-
But I was across from him in the cell block, so I was with him, I thought.
I'm in a cell by myself. I'm hearing noises. I'm hearing creaks. The beds are still all there. No mattresses, springs, typical bed. And I'm hearing things popping next to me. I'm hearing noises. I'm like, there's no way. There's just no way. It's an old building, It's
Yeah, and we were
falling
still
apart,
pretty
okay? I'm
early
hearing
into
the
it. I
old
mean, we have been
building.
doing it for years, but we were still
it's
pretty
all
early
brick,
in it.
It's all stone. It's all.
Was it at night?
metal. It
Oh
was
God,
at
yeah.
night.
Okay, but
we start at like 11.
All right, well, then there's
or
another
11
question.
o'clock.
Spirits only come out at night?
I don't think necessarily,
Not
but it's the most
necessarily.
convenient time.
I
really,
would say
to
it
ghost
cuts
hunt.
out a
It
lot
is.
of like
White noise?
background noise, regular day-to-day business stuff.
I think people are more aware when things are quiet.
I mean, you hear a lot about dead time and 3 o'clock in the morning and this and that, but I've seen doors slam at 6:30 in the afternoon. So like, what's that about? And like, I mean, people that live in places too that are haunted, I don't think it happens only at night either. I mean, I'm sure that the activity happens in the daytime, but because of the noise reduction at night, I think you're more like you're seeing it more just because of
that, and it's dark. I would say your senses are
Yeah,
a little more
senses
heightened.
are. It's true.
You're trying to see things. You're trying to hear things. You're trying to feel things. You're trying to see what is out there. So I think that kind of helps also. You get planes flying by.
Did you record this?
buses.
I mean, do you have recorded documentation
all of
on
it.
all
Yeah.
this?
So the part like where he falls off, that's not because it's not. I'm recording right on a camera. He's just in a cell next to me, just seeing if anything's going to communicate with us, basically.
So I think you and Danny, our other team member that didn't make it today, you guys were getting closer to me. I was still in the cell by myself, and then I started telling you guys. This is as up to the point where I don't remember anymore. Telling you guys about how I'm in the cell. We were in the female ward. Starting to feel comfortable. It was cold. It was what?
Yeah, it was cold. Yeah, it must have been. It was cold out because we try to plan the indoor ones for the wintertime just to be,
So
Be warm.
Because we're out there.
We're
It's so
wearing coats,
cold.
I'm in
The Esmond
cell.
train out there at the Esmond station. I've almost froze to death out there a couple of times. So
So, I'm a little confused. How did we find you guys? Just in general.
through her,
Through Kelly?
Yeah,
Through me.
How did you meet
Yeah.
Kelly?
because of
I called
some
them out
personal
to my home.
Shut
personal
up.
experience that she was
I'm
having.
not
Yeah.
going to shut
You
up.
called them
I
out to
called
your
them
house.
out. And let me tell you, that took a lot.
It does. I'm sure it does.
That took a lot.
Was your
And
house
that
brand
was-
new?
No, my house was not new. And that's when I moved. Jason was there prior.
Okay, it was Jason's house.
I married Jason and moved in with Jason. And he had mentioned some things, and I'd sort of never even thought anything about it. A couple of years went by, and started noticing certain things, and I'd, like you had said, I'd try to make excuses and try to figure out why it happened. And I think the things that were starting to stand out was my dog. I had a Yorkie at the time, and he started paying attention to certain things, barking at the wall for no reason, or chasing something down the hall that didn't exist. And I remember one time I was enjoying myself, and we had taken what I call the crack ball, because my dog was obsessed with this little ball. We put it up on a shelf.
Just took a turn, didn't it?
Yeah, no. I called it the crack ball because he was obsessed with it. Put it up on the shelf, and the dog was just barking in the closet, and he just sat down. And the ball came off the shelf from behind, whatever we had it tucked behind, bounced on the floor.
That's called gravity.
Well, not when we had it tucked. It was okay. You can say that, and I would have probably said the same thing, but I knew where the ball was. That was one incident. And he would do certain things like that, and we had a larger dog, and the dog just would stand up, look around, follow some whatever you would call it down the hallway like it was a person, happy, and just be sitting looking in the corner like somebody was there talking to it. We'd have things roll off the shelf for no reason. And little did I know, Jason and I would talk about it, and we'd say, well, what do you think it is? And he'd say, I don't know, what do you think it is? And we'd sort of have the same idea. And a year would go by, and we'd be talking about this. And we're like, okay, this is crazy. Lights would come on that had no business coming on. We had automatic lights, so if you walk in, the light.
It was a
would
nice
come
house
on.
too. New house.
It was a
It was
newer
a new
house.
house. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be having electrical.
No,
issues
no,
like
no.
that, you know, or rolling.
We had
blackout things,
we
yeah.
heard the sliding glass door at night. We thought it was a friend of ours coming back in because he knew how to get in. We heard the sliding glass door open.
Friend of yours comes through the sliding glass
Yeah,
door.
our neighbor would come in. He would always leave his sunglasses on the countertop, so he knew how to get in and let himself back out. But we said, why was he going out the sliding glass door? And he's like, okay, well, he just came and got his sunglasses and went out the sliding glass door. He said, and we'd say, well, we'd just lock it.
Hold on. Your husband has an armory.
Seriously, there's no way.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly.
if I hear you in my yard,
Needless to say, the sliding glass door was locked that next morning. That's when we're like, okay.
That's where you're
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, maybe he locked it on his way out.
But how are you going to lock a sliding glass door on the way out?
I could come up with excuse after excuse after excuse.
Well, and there could have been. But at that point, we had exhausted any excuse
All right, fair
that we
enough.
could.
Okay, so then you...
And we're very logical
So you
people.
Googled
I
Paranormal
went
Tucson?
through several, and I finally came across Ian, and we had a long conversation about the history, and I really felt
the Esmond
comfortable.
train accident, because I knew right away where she was located. I was like, oh, you're right there by Houghton and right at the cross streets of Houghton and Vale.
Okay.
That's right where the impact happened.
Okay.
And
How long ago?
This is 1903,
Okay.
January 27th. So I know that it was right there because before they built that little mall right there, that little grocery store, it's a grocery store.
Yeah,
right, that
it's
they have there.
Fry's.
So before they built it there was one of the rails from the train, from the kerosene steam engine, when they impacted at the intersection, one of the train rails embedded itself so deep into the ground in the desert that they couldn't get it out. It got stuck in there, like what we were talking about, how the ground is so hard here.
Is it still there?
They left it there for so long that it became this thing where people would go out to the desert and actually take pictures with the train rail from the Esmond train accident, just sticking out of the desert. So
That's my thing.
they pulled it out, right? They pull it out, and I'm like, I tell them one day, I'm like, oh my God, they got rid of it. It's gone. They probably just threw it away. We should have went out there and dug that rail up. It's a piece of history. So fast forward, a couple years later, I'm talking to the lady from the Vale Historical Society about a separate place that we were ghost hunting, and I asked her about the train rail, and she said that it's in the Historical Society in Vale. So they have that train rail. They went and they dug it up out of the desert and brought it to their museum in Vale. So
They could have opened up a portal to hell.
it's
just by pulling it out.
that's the only thing that was left from that accident there. So I mean, I wouldn't have brought it to my house. I probably would have left it at his house if I was going
Eric,
to go and dig it
is
up.
that what he does
but
to you, Eric? He makes you here. Hang on to this for a little while.
They're smarter than that.
Yeah.
He would never take
Well,
it.
and I mean,
so.
let me say, I was new to Tucson. I'm from Georgia originally. I'd never experienced anything prior, and I have never experienced anything since I've moved from that house.
All right.
Nothing.
How did you
what
get
did
rid
you
of him?
find at the house?
So
I didn't
yeah,
get rid of- I moved.
I would say one of the most relevant things I could think of that happened that night was we left to go outside and we left cameras in there, right, and all kinds of equipment, and nothing was really happening when we were
Did you
all
stay
in
in
there.
there while they did
we
it?
were all
Mm-hmm.
so they left and went. They're like, all right, we're going to take the dogs. We're going to go to the room. And we're just going to go outside and see if we can catch anything out kind of in the yard, because it's more of a property thing at that point, less about the house, more about like this environment itself, So we left everything inside and went outside on our own. Well, equipment started to go off when we weren't in there and when they weren't in there. And we have a device. It's just like an inter-telecommunication device that has a word library inside of it that says random words, and it said the number 7. And it said the number 8. It said a couple of different other things too that were relevant, but I went back and researched what the relevance of the 7 and the 8 were, and it was the number 7 train and the number 8 train that collided. It was like the number 7 Crescent City Express collided with like the number 8. So
And do you
the
catalog these
the
things? Do you
numbers.
keep these things like?
Oh, definitely.
Like
Oh, God, yeah.
trophies?
But it's been since 2010. So all these, like on our website, Tucson's Finest Paranormal.blogspot.com, it has all the videos.
And I got to know, just because you guys told me already, but
Yeah.
we got to bring it up.
Yeah.
What was Kelly's husband's response?
Oh, he was. I think he was shocked too. I mean, he wasn't expecting anything.
Right.
I think he thought it was BS. But it's nice to have him around because he's such a purist and doesn't believe anything. And even when it's like tapping him on the shoulder, that people warm up to that. They don't want to be BS'd, especially when they've gone out of their way to call you and invite them into your home. I don't know what they expect either. That's why I always go in, and I try to be like really positive and try to let people know like we're just there to help, and we're not obviously going to come back and try to rob you. So
Well, that's where
it's
going.
important. You have to build that
trust.
No different from with the spirits when you're trying to ghost hunt, to build that, that respect with the spirit, to make them want to communicate with you, rather than you just go in there and say, okay, here's all this equipment, talk to me. You have to earn the respect of them.
So Ian, you're really passionate about this. Have you ever considered, and maybe you already do, maybe you ever turn this into a business, or is this just...
It's almost happened a couple of times, actually. Like Ghost Adventures has contacted us.
So you didn't charge, they didn't charge you?
We don't charge anybody.
You don't charge?
I want to back up a minute. You said something. You said, how did I get rid of them? There was never a point in time.
I was talking about these guys.
Oh.
No, I'm joking.
There was never a point in time that I felt the need to exercise anything or ask them to leave. And I think I told you this, Ian. I said I never felt threatened. I almost felt like it was very playful.
It wouldn't have been a threatening type spirit.
It wasn't at all. And what I found out later that Jason,
it was accident victims.
Yeah, Jason we would start comparing stories, and Jason, I don't know if he was as skeptical or he just didn't want to admit that he saw more than he wanted to admit. But later he was like, "Yeah, did you notice that there was like my change would be on the floor?" And he's one of those anal people that needs everything cleaned, everything in his space. Mm-hmm. But his change would be scattered on the floor, or quarters would be where it shouldn't be. And he's like, "Did you notice that?" And we would talk about it later.
You sure he wasn't just messing with you? Because that's something I do to my wives.
No, that would be like, no.
Well, I remind them a lot, too, that we haven't done the show thing. We got really close a couple of times on actually like doing TV shows, but I remind them a lot that we would have to produce something for a production crew. It would be a lot of stress. There would be a lot of things involved that aren't on the table right now, because we do it for fun and to help people. And if nothing happens, we don't have to produce a TV show. We don't have to produce anything at all. We could just call it like it never happened, and nobody loses anything.
You could just say, okay, it's clean, or it's not.
Definitely,
we go to places and spend 3 hours and nothing happens.
We call them shot in the dark investigations.
And
that's cool.
It's like that sometimes. But
do you have a YouTube channel where you have
we
your
do
website?
YouTube too. TikTok.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
That's on Tucson. That's Tucson's Finest too.
Okay,
it's all
cool.
Tucson's Finest Paranormal.
So
stuff,
what's as far as the percentage of people that call you for like Kelly that isn't really worried about what they're seeing, it just is happening and they want to know why, versus somebody who's like, this is bad?
It's more often bad stuff usually.
Yeah.
But she had a lot of neutral spirits there because of, the instant death of that accident. I think those people were just kind of wandering lost around there, for 100 years, trying to figure out what happened, because they were reduced into piles of ashes, it says, when you read about it, the people. That's how fast that kerosene burned those people, that they couldn't even figure out who they were. They were trying to pick through the piles that some of the people they pronounced dead weren't dead. They just found like somebody's pocket watch in a pile of ashes and said, oh, this guy died. He had already been on a train and made it all the way to Pennsylvania. So like it was so poorly handled too when the accident happened. And then they got in trouble too by the train. The train company was out there putting multiple bodies in coffins, and the law enforcement got out there and they opened some of those coffins and saw multiple bodies inside the coffins, and they threw a fit and court-martialed everybody. That's when the guy that was supposed to take the train off the siding operator, his last name was Clow, he took off and skipped town because he would have gotten in big trouble. It was all coming to fruition at that point, and they knew that there was a catastrophic error made by someone, and they pointed the finger at him. And at first he said, no, I did what I was supposed to. But they can tell if a train's been taken off the siding or not. It's a switch. He's a switch operator. Period. That's all he did. Right. So they knew he didn't.
Wouldn't happen. So.
Yep.
So I'm gonna kind of change this up a little bit here, because we are a real estate show, and one of the things we wanted to talk about is if you had any knowledge of some haunted neighborhoods in Tucson.
Oh, well, I know that the Dunbar Springs neighborhood is haunted for sure.
Tell me how.
From the cemetery that was left underneath it's from 19.
So it's like
it shut down. It shut down in 1908. So it was called the Court Street Cemetery from 1875 to 1908.
So I'm going to leave us hanging right there. Okay,
Yep.
We're going to take a few minutes break. If you have any questions about today's show, feel free to reach out to us directly at Smith & Bollinger at longrealty.com. And always remember, we're here for you for all your real estate needs. Whether it's residential, commercial, investment, or land, we got you covered. All right, welcome back to Real Estate Rumble. So we were talking about Dunbar. In the neighborhood there that you claim is buried over the top of a cemetery.
It is, yeah.
How do you know that?
So 8,000 bodies. You can look up though. Well, first of all, there's turnarounds in the Dunbar Springs neighborhood, in the center turnarounds for the actual
The roundabouts that they put in.
In all the little roundabouts. So they have little signs there that say Dunbar Springs, and then on the bottom it says Court Street Cemetery, 1875 to 1908, and it's actually got a skull and crossbones on it.
Seriously,
and it's like tiled on there. They're really beautiful,
And that's the thing.
So
You would
knowing
never know.
that,
All right,
look
what's the
for
cross
it,
streets
but-
of Dunbar Springs?
Like south of what, Speedway?
Yeah, that's
and
right there by
Stone
like
or
Speedway and
something?
Stone. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the closest area. So,
like
it was
southwest
it was a huge cemetery. It was divided into different denominations by like Protestant and Catholic and like Jewish. It was different sections
Of the
and-
cemetery?
So it's
of the
redlined.
cemetery. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and that I think people back then, it mattered more to people
Right.
then
Right.
to be in your own actual like denomination. Yeah,
Right.
it mattered to people back then more. So there was at least 8,000 people buried there at the time that Tucson decided to grow and expand and needed those bodies removed. So they actually sent out through the newspaper an article saying that people needed to come and basically disinter their family members and take them and bring them over to Holy Hope Cemetery to be buried in what would have been a mass grave at the time, just a big hole in the ground. And then eventually they would have covered that with dirt, and they would have nicely placed the headstones on top, which that absolutely happened to maybe 4,000 of the bodies of the 8,000 that were there, and the rest of them were just left behind either because nobody paid anybody to remove the bodies, or they didn't have any family members. And
So you're saying that if I bought a house or lived in a house or visited a house and I was going to come over and dig up a flower bed, I possibly could find a body?
Absolutely. And it actually happens often, and you have to call an excavation crew in with like archaeologists, and they'll tell you everything you need to know about it. Really, I mean, once that happens, your property then becomes like an archaeological dig site.
Matt, have you guys, Kelly, you as well, have you guys ever experienced anything like this? Any paranormal activity?
No,
No.
I'm a heavy sleeper.
You're talking about like personally?
Yeah. Well, besides your house.
Well, I mean,
Well, that's
no,
something. But no, I haven't.
No. So I've had a couple experiences. Okay. As you know, I like to drink a little whiskey when I was younger, and I'm talking like 16. All right. And there was a rumor in the graveyard that over there off of Oracle, do you know which one that is?
Yeah.
Okay. There used to be a big elk there, a big elk. And the rumor is if you went in there at midnight on Halloween night, the elk would speak to you.
So you tried it.
I passed out.
Nice.
Damn thing. And then now somebody else has the elk. I don't know where the elk is, so I can never go talk to the elk again. That was a flowing one.
Was it Evergreen, the one with all the trees? Or
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
because there's
There used to
Evergreen
be a
and Holy
huge
Hope.
elk,
They're
and
right
it
next to themselves.
It never.
so.
And there's some cool tunes
what did
there.
the elk say?
There are.
I don't know. I passed out at the base of the elk.
I always
I don't
laugh because
think that that's necessarily paranormal.
I don't think so
I
either.
think
I'm
that's
pretty
Yeah, I don't know if I
sure
call that an
self-induced.
experience. Yeah.
That
Quaaludes,
Delusions.
maybe.
Anyway,
Dudes on
Moving right
nudes
along.
should not drive.
So a lot of the bodies in that so in Holy Hope, a lot of the bodies aren't even there. They are still buried. Their headstones are there, but they are buried still over under the Dunbar Springs Cemetery and under the power plant too
How
downtown.
about the
That was
one, the
another
neighborhood that flooded and all the graves came up? Do you know
That probably was Dunbar Springs. Yeah.
Yeah, was that what it
You were
was?
telling me.
Yeah. That was terrible.
It was when we had that big flood and all of a sudden
Yeah.
the caskets started floating
That
up.
happens in the South, like Louisiana and whatever. Like when they had
why they do a
like
lot of
Hurricane
crypts
Katrina,
there.
that happened all over the place. That's
What's that song? Bodies hit the floor. Something like that.
Yes.
Yikes! Bad choice of words.
good
Well,
suspicious.
All right, so
All of those things happening, and even in the downtown where they found a bunch of bodies, it made people respect the dead more, in essence, and to preserve the body better. And that's why you ended up seeing like concrete vaults, and then the coffin. And the coffins, I don't know how many people know this, but there's a bunch of different kinds of coffins, and they're different gauges, and basically depending on how much you care about your family member, which I think that it's a racket anyway. Because
$10,000 put somebody in the grave.
I mean, you know, when are you going to see this coffin again, first of all? And how well do you need it sealed once the spirit leaves the vessel? So, I mean, it's just the body, whether it's a foot below the ground. I mean, they knew back in the 1800s enough to put you deep enough and put enough rocks on top of you that the coyotes couldn't dig you up and eat you.
Right.
That was a good burial.
So what do I do?
A makeshift
what
cross.
if I live in Dunbar Springs and a knife moves across my table, and I just happened to see a video on the internet before I came here. You know, as things start happening, what is my resolution? Just move?
What do you think, Eric?
Can I get somebody? I mean, I'm an ordained. I'm an online ordained minister.
Case by case basis. I mean,
It's true.
you don't feel safe. I mean, that's.
What about getting the spirit out?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do I kick the spirit out? Dig up the coffin and move it?
I would do a cleansing.
All right,
Would be one way to do
sage.
it. I would say, well, it depends on how bad on the severity of the spirit too. In that case,
Yeah,
because
there's different states.
yeah, there's different levels
doing
of
a cleansing
hauntings really too, and like
hauntings,
severities of haunting too. I always tell people don't try to like investigate it yourself. And the funniest one, I wish I could carry the guy around with me. We were in Tombstone recently, and we went to this little town. We were going into a property, and these guys came up on 4-wheelers thinking that we were running illegal immigrants, actually.
Oh, nice.
So it was one of those things where it was uncomfortable at first, and then they warmed up, and they saw that we were ghost hunters and stuff. They actually had heard of us because we go to Gleason a lot. So we were talking to them about going to the trailer, and they said, you know, we said, hey, it was just me and Danny there. He actually didn't make it on that one, but we said, you know, why don't you join us over there at the trailer? And they said, yeah, you know, we'll take a ride over there with you. And usually people are pretty open to coming, and we don't ever invite anybody to come. So for him to kind of open his arms like that, you know, and them to not be as like willing was kind of weird to me. So I said, okay, you know, maybe they just don't care. So we got over there. And we got off and we started setting up the equipment, and I noticed that the one guy wouldn't even get off the 4-wheeler. And I was like, hey, you know, you can get off the 4-wheeler if you want and come over here and, you know, and watch. And he said, oh no, I actually had a really personal experience inside of this trailer. You know, and I'm like, really, what happened? Because I have too, you know, but on a different level, paranormal investigating it. And he said, I was the biggest skeptic. Didn't believe in any of it. And his buddy lives right there, right next to it. So they know all the history about everything. The girls got killed in the 90s. He lived there when the girls got killed.
Okay, hold on, back up. Tell the story about the trailer because we're not sure what happened.
Yeah, so in Gleason, this trailer, these young girls got killed back in like the mid 90s by these two guys, and they took the bodies and dumped them in a mine shaft up on the hill. And since then, the one murderer, Richard Stokely, was lethally injected in 2001, and the other murderer slipped and fell in a shower after a 20-year sentence that he did serve. They're all dead. The girls are dead and both of the murderers are dead, but they lived there during all this when it all happened, and since it's all kind of faded away. So he entertained it, the big guy and his friend. They went there one day because it's right there. They could walk to it, you know, and he went in there, and he was big. He was a big guy. He was like a, you know, like a backwoods, you know, hillbilly looking cat that looked like he wouldn't be afraid of much. He had a big gun. We had our guns too. We were in the desert, you know, but they both had their big guns with them and stuff. And of course, you know, but he said that he didn't believe it. He went in there. He not only tried to like talk to it, but he got like kind of insulting, I think, in a way, just like kind of like making it seem like it was all just fake. And it got him. It did something to him physically, okay. And he said it took him about a week to get over. He got very sick and left the trailer, and then after that, it starts with the sickness. Usually, that's usually how it does start. They'll make you sick, and you'll feel that sickness, but then after that, the sickness goes away, and you feel this kind of lost feeling.
Start to feel nauseous.
All right, Matt, what's your thought?
It creeps me out. Like, I couldn't do that stuff.
I've actually had stuff happen to me in this trailer that make me not ever want to go back in again, but I keep going back because I have this weird...
Kelly and I will go.
You know, so anyway, that night when I was in there, I went in there and kind of called him out again. You know, these murderer guys, and Danny and them were outside. He was outside with those two neighbor guys, right? And him and one of the guys were at the window, and the other guy was on his 4-wheeler, but you could hear somebody in the back room start walking. Boom, boom, boom. And I could feel it in the floor of that little trailer. So I got a little uncomfortable, but I'm just like, okay, it's cool. Well, then it starts walking down, and the devices started to go off as it went through the kitchen area, and that little music box turned on just for a second, long enough for somebody to walk through the pathway, and you could feel that energy changing. And
so the music box is, bear with me here, is the music box, it's activated by movement.
So it's got it. There's a beam. There's like an infrared beam coming out of the front of that
somebody
thing.
crosses it.
Yeah, so it's just aiming down the hallway, and you can't come in and out of the hallway in that place.
Cockroach? Can a cockroach?
I don't think a cockroach could set it off. No, unless maybe if it crawled over the actual sensor itself, but the light would turn off on it.
Got it.
You know,
Got it.
Because that barrier has to be broken. But so I'll tell you too, because of the skeptic in myself too, to not just buy something like that.
Me too.
I take it. I've taken that thing. Like we just actually did a really beautiful train station up in Red Rock recently. But before that, because of this one even, and it going off in there, that music box, I took it out in my house. And I set it down in my living room, and I let it sit there for like 3.5, 4 hours. And I walked by it every now and then and forgot it was there. And it would turn on, you know, and that was it. My cat's going by, nothing.
I guarantee you if Matt had that music box in his house and it went off on its own, he'd throw that music box right out the front door.
You know, hard.
He would never play with it.
Like in my house,
Monday's
house has never
garbage
been
day.
haunted. My house has never been haunted.
Monday's garbage day. Is that what you said?
We're really
garbage
careful
day.
about that.
So Matt, you buying into this?
I think it freaks me out. So I guess, yeah, I think there would be something in me that says that it's real, but I would run away from it as far as I could.
Some experience didn't happen to me personally. And then I went to places I went to the Copper Queen. I've been to Jerome. I've sought it out. Said, okay, if I'm this sensitive, I want to see something happen somewhere else. I have never had an experience since
definitely.
then. I've moved out of that house, and I've moved into a new house where...
Is it for sale yet?
No, nothing. I've been so bored. Let me tell you, nothing's happened. And I don't want to mention and I don't want to be disrespectful, but in the past few years, there's been a tragedy that happened on the street very recently, where somebody very young has lost their life, and it was high profile. Nothing happened. I've not had any kind of experiences since then, so it's not like I'm seeking it out.
Okay, that's
definitely.
Do you think people that seek it out, no offense, guys, are going to see things that they want to see? I mean, can you? Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
If you entertain it, the more you entertain it, the more likely you are to have what we would consider a transient spirit. Like that would be like if that person that died on your street, if you started talking and trying to communicate with that spirit that died on the street, and you welcomed that spirit into your environment and created an involuntary haunting, basically because of entertaining a transient spirit, then that's usually when we do the cleansings. Actually,
what about
it's an accidental haunting that somebody's brought on themselves by trying to talk, usually to dead family members. Is usually how it happens.
Got it.
To your dad and mom.
On the internet, there's always I call them, what are those rocks that they put around their neck?
Oh,
the crystal gals. Okay. The crystal gals always show pictures of these lights in photography. So to me, I kind of know that that's really just
the orbs.
It's the orbs.
Yes. Okay. So there actually is an energy orb though, but there's also water orb. There's light orbs. There's all these different types of orbs that can be misrepresented, even if it was something paranormal. You know, it's one of those things
sometimes it's just
they're naturally occurring.
I use the dowsing rods as an example for that because a lot of paranormal people say the dowsing rods will cross with paranormal activity. Well, here's the problem with that. You're holding the dowsing rod, which again, you don't know what this equipment is that we use. We absolutely could have altered this equipment and made it create this illusion.
But did you?
You know, but we did not. But with the dowsing rod, I believe that the dowsing rod probably does work to some extent. However, I would not, if you held them in front of me right now and you said, oh, it's going to cross when the spirit walks through it, and it crossed, I don't know if I would believe you.
You didn't bring.
I am a paranormal.
You didn't bring any spirits with you today. So I have to ask.
I did not. Hopefully.
You still a skeptic?
No, I think that it's freaky, and I don't want any part of it. But I'm glad people do.
If and correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody is concerned or fearful, or first thing you have to do is set your pride aside. Talk to somebody you trust, a spiritual leader, somebody in your church. Be prepared. There will be skeptics or somebody that's going to laugh at you and tell you you're crazy.
I have not laughed at anybody.
But I'm telling you, if you wanted to reach out to Ian or someone else, he's very open-minded and he understands where you're coming from, and you're not crazy.
So, Ian, you are so passionate, and we could speak for hours upon hours. And trust me, if I'm going to lean on anybody's expertise, whether I'm a skeptic or not, it would be somebody just like you.
I'm just in the books all the time.
That you are,
Reading.
you've obviously, it's not even a trade for you. It's a passion.
Yeah, I
It
love
is.
it.
Okay. So
I love history too.
Yeah.
Like I love that helps the history thing. I love
History
history.
He definitely
I do.
does his
And
research.
history reads like a movie.
because you need that
know?
history because to understand what's
Yes,
going
but
on.
it reads like a movie. Like when I read these stories to them, I'm like, can you believe this? Like,
So
you know,
you said that somebody dug up a grave somewhere and then dug up another grave. Was it a
that
young
was
child or
that
something?
was Dunbar Springs. Yeah, that was in the Dunbar Springs neighborhood.
and
that
they
was
just
more
happened to come
recent.
across one.
It was a sinkhole in the front yard that started, and then they ended up digging a little further, and they uncovered a skeleton, and the guy's wife was she was a doctor and worked with kids, so he showed her the bones, and she was like, "Yeah, those are the bones of a child, of a small child." So because they didn't know right away if it was just a dog buried or something in the backyard, obviously, which I'm sure that they would have been a lot
Are
happier
your
to
neighbors
see.
a serial killer and buried the body in your yard?
Well, yeah, and then it turns into an excavation, and then they pulled the whole grave out.
So I have one story about a grave at a house that we sold, and we didn't even notice. And we had sold this house. We were doing our final walkthrough with the clients, and my wife's an agent as well. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I hear from the backyard, John. I go, yeah. She goes, come on out here. So she pulls up, and there's a headstone there in the backyard.
Was it old or?
It was fairly old to us, right? Well, we didn't care. We were just kind of scared.
Yeah, but like 1900s, early.
No, it was earlier than that.
Okay, yeah,
I mean,
it was
more
even
recent
more
than-
common.
I'm sorry, it was more recent. Than
Oh,
that.
really?
Yeah, so it was
Oh,
like
that's
modern
creepy.
day. Okay, so we had to stop everything because it is illegal to bury a body on your property. Okay, especially in the middle of town. All right, so we had to stop, do an investigation on whether there was a body there or not.
Right.
Okay, and what we had found.
But there was a headstone?
There was a headstone. And what we had found, and then the buyer said, I don't care as long as there's not a body there. Okay. So we offered to have somebody come out and dig it up. We went through the whole thing.
Definitely.
And he goes, you know what? At this point, just find out why it's there. So we talked to the seller, and the seller said, my brother committed suicide in the back wash when it was running, and I just placed it there as a memorial.
Oh, they never found the body or something.
So the people took the headstone away, and that was over it. Now, the body still could be there. They may have just did what they had to say, but you would hope that the house has sold 3 times since then. But just a point that you don't know what's there.
You don't. And I mean, like the ones that were downtown, some of those were only 18 inches below the ground. Not only are they down there, they're right below our feet, and we're walking all over them. I actually just recently saw one where out in Dragoon Springs by Benson, there are burials out there from people that they know who they are and why they died and why they ended up there. But more recently in history, they were excavating a little bit, and they found a severed head out there from a young kid that was like in his 30s with great teeth, but nothing written about him in history. Wow. No idea who he is.
Ian,
nobody knows who he is.
Ian, 30's not young, bro.
Isn't that well?
Okay.
Hey, I'm 41, so 30's young. So,
all right, fair enough.
That's
Eric's 30.
It's really young.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
no.
40's young now.
But yeah, you never know what's buried there,
No.
and they didn't know that. I mean, they didn't know he was there. What they assumed probably happened was that the Apache Indians probably cut somebody's head off and brought it there and threw it there. And
soccer with it.
Yes, so it was a scare tactic, and they
didn't
didn't know
use-
what to do with this person's head,
That's
and they didn't know where the
crazy.
body was, so they
All
just
right,
buried it.
So say I have a spooky house, and then I'm concerned about paranormal activity, and it's just not. I just need to do something about it before I run out of my house. How do I get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, Tucson's
You
Finest
could- you
Paranormal,
could
actually,
look
because it'll
up-
all come up.
I mean-
so
Give the website again.
And do you
Yeah.
take every case?
it's Tucson'sFinestParanormal.blogspot.com. Danny,
You could look us
Danny
up.
handles a lot
There
of it,
are
too.
other groups besides us that do this similar stuff.
There is.
But don't we?
Everybody
wanna,
does it for a different reason.
But see, you guys are
We
passionate
do
about
it because we have
well,
no
I mean,
idea,
these guys do the research.
you
I know
know.
that for a fact.
Well,
Yeah.
like the lady asked the other day about the trailer park, what she has to pay us, and our pay is really just the investigation.
Just
The
the
access.
access
Yeah, the
to
access,
go,
and
the
some of the places are
experience.
incredible that we get access to. It's mind blowing some of the places that people let us into, but it's because since 2010 we've been doing it, and we have all these places under our belt and all these big places that, I mean, if I owned it, I don't know if I would let me in there, and they let me in.
So name some places that could be haunted. I believe that Hotel Congress.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah, we've done
sure.
a really interesting investigation there, by the way.
Okay.
Long before Ghost Adventures ever did.
All
but
right,
yeah.
so Hotel Congress is one.
Slaughterhouse.
What about the
slaughterhouse
That's a
is-
place where people.
So
that's just cows and
Hey,
die.
so
That's what I
funny
wanna
story
know.
about the slaughterhouse. I met the owners of that place, but like after it was the meat packing plant, and when the owners just bought the building, I rolled up on them one day just out of curiosity about the building.
Right.
And they said they didn't know anything about ghosts or any haunting or anything, and they didn't care, and that they just wanted to make money off the building. And so I said, hey, would you let us do some investigating and stuff here? And they entertained the idea of
Okay.
it and let us in there before it was even
haunted
being
house.
considered a haunted house. So it was so
It was
cool to
still
see
the
the
original
building like that. Like you'll
slaughterhouse.
never see it like that ever again,
No.
because now it's all
Yeah.
a fake Halloween attraction. But we
Right.
got to go in there when it was like really like right fresh out of being an actual like
And what's
a meat packing plant.
what's their claim? That somebody got
freezers.
caught up in there? Is that what the claim
There
was?
was a couple of deaths in there actually.
Well, there's a couple deaths in this
Well,
building.
the most prominent one was the guy on there was a really strange elevator that they used in there that didn't have any protection around it.
It was a lift.
Yeah, and that he did get decapitated in there. That
Okay.
actually did happen. There was also a shootout that happened in there with a police encounter that happened maybe 30 or 40 years ago.
But there's that
building
kind
was
of history
abandoned.
all over
Yeah.
Tucson, right? You could probably go into anywhere in Tucson,
And
even
find
an
somebody
older
died,
home.
yeah.
There's probably a history there. Okay, I guarantee it.
I mean, stuff
you
that
built your
people-
house brand new.
Stuff that people have never heard about. Like Stone and Grant area. There was a Sparkle Cleaners there, like back in the 50s, that exploded, and it shot people into the street from the explosion and killed like 15 people.
Wow.
Nobody even remembers that happening.
I mean, if you go to
know?
Grant and Alvernon, you could probably find more ghosts than you ever know.
Seriously,
They don't
And
even
zombies.
know
There's
it.
a lot.
They're just
there's
wandering
lots of
around on the
zombies
street.
out
I
there.
guarantee
They're
you.
dead, they're
just
dead and they haven't
wandering
figured it out
Okay,
yet.
and before we go, I want you to explain one more time why ghosts have clothes on. I mean, at least that's how they're portrayed.
I
If
think
you
that
see like the white flowing
you're in
gowns and
control of
all
how
that.
you look, I would say, as a spirit.
It's your
you know?
vision.
I think you're in control of how you
can't-
present yourself to the, because
Because you don't necessarily see, guys. Just for clarification, you're never seeing bodies roll through. You're just
very
seeing,
rare.
you're
I mean,
seeing activity.
I thought about that actually just because we were going to do this, and I thought about like the concept of the full bodied apparition, and I thought, have I ever really seen a full bodied apparition? But it actually did happen one time to me in the school, the Greenfields school. To me and Danny, you weren't there. You were
Oh,
with the lady.
that's right.
got arrested in the 80s for that.
There was a guy. There was a guy standing watching me and Danny from this trailer. This big guy, right? And we were into the investigation, and we were the only ones there. Me and him and Danny.
I was in a different
and the
spot.
owner
I
of the
wish I
building
would've
was
seen
there,
that.
and so we're investigating. Me and Danny are catching stuff out in this like open area, right outside. And I happen to look over, and I see this guy standing there, and it was creepy. It was scary because I didn't know what he was watching us for, So I told Danny, "Hey, who is this guy?" And he turns and looks, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know who that is." And I'm like, "Well, he's standing there watching us because he was standing with his arm up, watching us from like a little school building, that was active. It's a real school, Greenfield.
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
I know where it's
So we get nervous, and it like disheveled us during the investigation. So we see them walking down the sidewalk, and we turn and look, and we watched the guy go in to a room, and then he walked through the trailer past all the windows inside, right? And he was inside the trailer.
Okay, let me
could see his
just let me get my
silhouette.
mind. Okay, walk through the trailer or
Yeah,
walk in.
No, he walked in through like a door,
Okay.
and then he went through the trailer, and we watched him walk through the trailer. The lights were on inside the trailer, so you could see his shadow of the same guy, right? So the whole time it's a person that's never a spirit, right? It's just this person, right? So I go and get him and the lady, and I'm like, "Hey, who's this guy over here watching us from this room?" And she's like, "There's nobody over there. Nobody else is here. It's just us." "Okay, show me." So we go over there, and she's like, "Yeah, look, I mean, this door is normally locked. Well, the lock was broken." Right. And I'm like, "Oh, the lock's broken on that." And she's like, "Oh, I wonder if somebody's broken in here." Well, then the trailer's next to us here too. Right. I go and I check, that lock is locked. And I'm like, "Well, he walked through this door right here to go into the trailer." Anyway, I look inside the door. There's no door inside the little room that he went in to get inside the trailer. So then I tell her, "Oh, open up the door to the trailer," right? So she opens it. It's a single room trailer. She unlocks the lock and takes the lock down, opens it, and it was just a one room little trailer with like it was like a reading room for like a little library. Nothing. No way that the guy could have got in and out of there,
So Eric, I got to ask you a question, right? There has to be the one guy in every group to keep the group straight.
Of course.
You ever call bullshit?
all the time.
Okay, good.
I have to
Yeah, he does.
because, I mean, he saw it. I missed it. I mean, could it have been somebody walking by? Maybe.
Or
Not
you
that
could
you're-
have
not
said,
that what you saw was bullshit.
I still think that it might have been a person too. Like Danny too, I'm like, how could it be? But all I ever remember is looking up the history of the building and seeing a picture of the original owner of the place with his
He
dog.
had a hat.
Yeah, and he had this big hat, and he was like 6 foot something, so he would have been a pretty big guy. And there was a picture of him, and he loved the property. It talked about that, about the history of Greenfield. You can actually look it up, and it talks about the original owners. He loved it. They lived there. Their house is no longer there. They had a beautiful house built there on the property. It's not there anymore. It's since been removed, and there isn't any housing there anymore. But he loved the place, and it was so close to what that guy looked like, but I couldn't see any face or anything. Could it have been a person? Definitely. But there's no way they could have got out of there.
Yeah, interesting. So Matt's our guy that calls bullshit, right?
Yes.
For us, he's the one that kind of keeps us on the straight and narrow.
You need it. Everybody.
I think
needs
everybody
it. You
needs
have
it,
to
right?
have it
Because Kelly and I
seriously.
are like, let's go to the
You need
graveyard,
the
talk to
balance.
Bill.
You have to have a balance, and I don't want to fool myself either.
Right.
I don't want to fool
Yeah.
myself.
I'm that guy
you know?
because tons of times we've been at a place and Ian's like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I didn't hear that."
'Cause you want it so
I
bad.
don't know what it is, and of course I want to
Well, and you're
see
like,
it. I want to hear it.
you're waiting to get bit by a snake.
But-
You're waiting to get stung by a wasp. I mean, you're waiting for all these different. Your senses are overload.
Sure.
So you have to really like kind of. Once you're in there, you get comfortable. And then once you get comfortable, you stop caring about all the stuff around you. And every now and then you'll look up and you'll see like a wasp's nest with like 50 wasps on it, and you're like, oh yeah.
How much
that's
would it
there.
cost me to send Matt to the trailer with you guys overnight?
Oh, no chance.
Oh, you
We'll
love
take them
it.
for free, Emmett.
No chance.
Yeah, I bet it would make a ghost hunter out of you if you went. I bet you. It would.
go.
Kelly's like, we're in.
I
Bring
go.
it.
It's like
Kelly, bring your husband
it's
and
like a
his gun.
drug. Seriously, like once you actually see something,
Especially
I think it's really
when
like a
something
drug.
happens.
You guys have family?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I
do-
don't have kids, but like
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you have people that think you're crazy?
Oh yeah, my mom.
Yeah.
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 I mean, my mom thinks I'm crazy because she's a good Catholic and thinks
Atta-
you
atta
should
girl.
talk to anything ever.
Right.
Like you should never talk to anything. You don't know if you don't know what it is, no matter what, is the way she thinks about it.
Are you
know,
opening the
so-
door? In other words,
Oh,
are you
definitely.
creating a portal?
Definitely.
You're always
Are we
taking that
ghost
chance.
busting? I mean, gatekeeper. Are you the key master kind of stuff?
That's why the prayer part is so important. You know?
We always
Which
go.
I don't
Agreed.
think everybody does that. I think we're probably one of the only people that do that, or if they do it, they don't talk about it. But we do like entry prayers and exit prayers. And if we forget them, either one of them, we make sure that we stop and do it. Like no matter where we were,
some point, yeah.
just to make sure that there's no like inadvertent temporary subjugation that happens, because sometimes it'll follow you home just for a little while and stay for like a day or two, which that happens a lot actually. That's very common in paranormal world, and it's a terrible part.
Y'all
of
brought
ghost
some
hunting.
shit in here, didn't you? I guarantee you we're gonna
Yeah,
be
it's the
haunted
worst
for
part
a
of
week.
ghost hunting.
I have to
That's
ask
the
this
problem
question
with dealing
just
with
because
you
I'm an
now.
80s child. You ever
Yeah.
been slimed?
Never been slimed. That's ectoplasm. But
been ectoplasm. I love it. You
so
know
you know what ectoplasm actually does feel like, because it is a real thing.
Okay.
It feels like
Oh,
a spider.
come
It feels like a
on.
spider web.
Oh, dude, that
It
happened to me
does. It feels
yesterday.
like a spider web. Yeah.
The spider web thing, and my
Yeah,
wife
and like
just thought it was
usually
high.
when you feel that, like when you feel it, it's so vivid that like you'll feel like you walk through a veil of spider web, and you'll think it is a spider web. So
God,
like you'll
now
do
I'm
that
itchy.
spider web thing, and then you'll go like this, and you'll say, no
The hell with this.
way,
Y'all
no
done.
way.
I'm
See,
done.
Like,
and
Y'all
that's-
ruined
and
my
that's
night.
where
and then
I'm like, it's
you're
a
like, how
spider.
could I be crazy? Like,
It's
where's
over.
the web? Because
We're-
like once you get a spider web on you, it's hard to get the web off. This, like, you'll walk through the veil of web and you feel it, and you can feel it in your hands, and then it goes away.
You need to get off
And
my
it's gone.
podcast
And
now.
that's where I gotta say,
You need to go. Y'all
That's where
done.
I gotta hit the bullshit button and
Hit
say,
me. Oh, wait, yeah, definitely. Here we go.
No, it's a thing. It's a thing.
That came
that's
from
where I
Eric.
gotta hit that and say it's a spider, Ian.
No, there is.
You know,
Ectoplasm is real.
All right, guys. Well,
But-
listen, this was amazing. Thanks for taking. If y'all don't know, we did this on a Sunday with these guys so they could make time for us, and we
Definitely
appreciate
go
it.
look
it out.
Again,
appreciate
we're
it.
talking about Tucson's finest paranormal. Look them up on Google. Look them up on YouTube. Get a hold of us if
TikTok.
you have anything. Their TikTok. Reach out to them. Let us know if you guys engage with these guys. Again, I want to thank you both for.
Yeah,
taking
thank
your
you very
time.
much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Real Estate Rumble. It is proudly produced and edited by Unestablished Media. If you're looking to start your own podcast or in need of social media services, design work, or even website creation, check out our website at unestablishedmedia.com. Thanks.